In the beginning, there is silence. A young learner stands at the edge of the foreign language, gazing into the void of strange letters, unfamiliar rhythms, indecipherable idioms. It is not merely a gap in knowledge. It is an encounter with chaos. In the myth of old, chaos is a dragon, vast, unknowable, and dangerous. So too is the world of English for the uninitiated. And like all true stories of transformation, this one begins when the learner answers the call to speak, to understand, to cross the threshold into the unknown. Language learning is not a process of accumulation. It is a metamorphosis. The learner must shed an old scheme of certainty, of linguistic habit, and enter the forest where signs and meanings shift. According to the architecture of myth, this is the crossing of the first threshold. The forest is a liminal space, neither home nor fully foreign, where the rules are unfamiliar. Psychologically, it is the domain of the unconscious, the wellspring of archetypes. Freud saw the unconscious as a space of primal urges, Jung as a repository of symbols and shared myth. In the first encounters with English, both aspects awaken. The learner faces confusion. Why does read change pronunciation across tenses? Why does break a leg mean good luck? This irrationality is not a flaw. It is the dragon's breath, testing whether the traveler will retreat or continue. The call to adventure is always cloaked in ambiguity. And so the learner steps forward, unsure but willing. The journey begins. Every hero needs tools. In their journey through language, grammar becomes the sword, precise, sharp, forged in logic. It slices through ambiguity, giving form to what would otherwise be chaos. Vocabulary, in contrast, is a map, a growing web of associations, sensations, and categories. Jean Piaget described learning as the process of accommodation and assimilation, altering mental structures to absorb new realities. So too does the English learner restructure the mind to accommodate new metaphors, sounds, and categories of being. Texturize, listening comprehension, essays, awkward conversations at cafes. The learner battles through confusion, forgetfulness, fear of speaking. These are not arrows. They are necessary ordeals. In mythology, the hero must be dismembered before being reborn. The ego must fail, surrender, and reorient itself to a deeper structure. But tools alone are not enough. A sword needs a hand to wield it, a map, eyes to read it. And so, when the learner stumbles, confused, weary, uncertain, a figure emerges, not to erase the difficulty, but to transfigure it. This is the mentor. Like Gandalf the Grey, the mentor first arrives quietly. A teacher in the classroom, a voice in the dark. They speak not in commands, but in questions, not in answers, but in echoes. Yet, as the journey deepens, so too does their form. They are revealed again, this time as Gandalf the White, returned from death radiant with clarity. The authority is not asserted, it is remembered, as if the soul always knew. To Freud, the mentor is the ego's compass, through instinct and repression. Grammar, like the superego, structures chaos. Through language, impulse is sculpted into clarity. But Jung goes even deeper. The mentor is the wise old man, archetype of order, whisperers of symbols. Under their gaze, words are no longer tools, but portals. The mentor does not remove the dragon. They name it. They do not shield the learner from failure. They teach them to walk through it. Silence becomes part of the gift. They speak only when the learner has reached the place where listening becomes possible. In their presence, the learner begins to change. Thought gains structure, attention sharpens, and something deep begins to align. The learner senses that they are not merely learning English, they are being transformed by it. There comes the moment when the learner must speak, not in rehearsal, but in the world, in public, in the classroom, on the street corner abroad. This is the innermost cave, the abyss of self-exposure. It is the moment of reckoning, where the hero meets the dragon not as a metaphor, but as resistance, embarrassment, or misunderstanding. This is where the stakes are real, where shame, failure, and silence lurk in every mispronunciation. But it is precisely here that transformation becomes possible. To speak is to risk, but it is also to declare presence. In psychological terms, this is the integration of the shadow, the feared part of the self that contains untapped strength. The learner realizes that fluency is not perfection, but courage repeatedly practiced. In confronting this abyss, the learner discovers an unexpected gift, the ability to continue, despite the cracks in the voice, the hesitation, the forgetting. The reward is not applause, but something deeper, a quiet self-recognition, a growing flame of inner authority. When a learner crosses the abyss and begins to speak with fluency, something irreversible occurs. They no longer dwell in only one world. They become what the myth calls the master of two worlds, someone who can move between their native tongue and English, not as a tourist, but as a builder of bridges. To think in another language is to think again. It is to have a second mirror in which to reflect the self, to experience reality from a new symbolic order. And with this comes a gift, not only the ability to communicate, but the capacity to translate experiences, to empathize, to mediate across difference. The hero returns to the village, but they are changed. They carry treasure, not gold, but expanded consciousness. English becomes not merely a skill, but a dimension of being. The boon they carry is not just words, but the wisdom earned through crossing. Learning English is not only about jobs or tests or degrees. It is a journey of the self. It begins in silence, moves through chaos, and ends in a new kind of order, one forged through effort, risk, and vision. It is the journey Joseph Campbell mapped again and again, a monomyth of the human heart, dressed now in phonetics and punctuation. The dragon of confusion and fear will not vanish, but once named and faced, they lose their power. And the learner, now a speaker, understands the oldest truth of myth, that words, when spoken with courage, reshape the world.